Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined today by BadgerBlitz.com publisher John McNamara. John, good to see you as always.
Good to see you too, Matt.
All right, John. Well, Clint and I were on just the other day talking recruiting, but John, you and I are here today to talk about the team itself. And in the wake of a tough loss, I would say, at Washington State, one I feel like the Badgers feel like they could have probably come away with. What's been the mood around the team this week?
Yeah, I guess from the fan base, it seems to be. I don't want to say quite a bit of disappointment, but there certainly is kind of disappointment in the air. And, we've talked about this where, for months and months and months before games are played, like this crew, Luke Fickell's staff, could kind of do no wrong. They knocked it out of the park in the transfer portal. They finished that 2023 recruiting class well. They've obviously put together a really nice 2024 class. So, I think expectations were sky high, and people in the media, myself included, I think we're part of that. And I still think this team is talented and can be very good, but I do think that the bulk of the fan base thought that with Luke Fickell in place, these would be the type of games that Wisconsin would win starting right away. And obviously that wasn't the case on Saturday.
Do you think it's just a case of the team hasn't had enough reps into completely different systems?
And Luke Fickell kind of shut that down after the Washington State game. It's tough to make that argument with the portal because I think they addressed the needs that they had. They addressed receiver, they addressed offensive line. Obviously, Jake Renfro, not being there, I think is a big cog of why they're maybe not having as much success as they anticipated. There are some style changes, obviously, on both sides of the ball, and much more so on offense. But I don't necessarily think you can point to that because you see schools like Colorado, they're just flowing now. Obviously they hit the portal harder than any other team in the country. That's different, but you have a quarterback. Tanner Mordecai, I think, is a really good quarterback, a really good college quarterback, and I think you saw a lot of that in the second half of what he was able to do. So, there are things that need to kind of get up to speed and big changes that are made, but I don't know that you can make an excuse for that. Losing to a team like Washington State, which I thought Washington State looked good, on Saturday, but they're not world beaters out there. That's a tough place to play, but again, a game that you would expect Wisconsin to win, when all the hype was going around about Luke Fickell and what he was able to put together here at Wisconsin in year one.
Yeah, and I think that I think what was tough for a lot of Badgers to and a lot of Badger fans to see was the still lacking the turnover, still turning the ball over a lot and not turning the ball over on defense, and not just getting a ton of pressure in general on defense on opposing quarterbacks, and that's going to be difficult again this weekend with Georgia Southern, who likes to air it out a little bit. Do you think we'll see any sort of large changes to the defense this coming weekend?
I don't think so. They were sloppy in alignments and getting guys on the field in the first half, and you would expect some of that stuff to get cleaned up. If Georgia Southern gives them a look that they're not maybe anticipating, maybe you see some of those same issues crop up again. But you would expect those to be emphasized this week and cleaned up. And, they're not going to face a quarterback at Georgia Southern with the talent that Cam Ward had. But again, it's similar philosophy, I think, with, getting the ball and getting it out quick. And Wisconsin struggled with that. They've had guys in that secondary who have not played well. Mm-hmm. Alexander Smith is not played well. Kamoy Latu is really not played well. They have some stuff to clean up in that back end there outside of Hunter Wohler, who's been, very, very good for over 2 weeks.
Yeah, Wohler has definitely stood out. And what stands out to me about Wohler is he tackles very violently, and he doesn't really seem to miss a lot of tackles. And you can't say that about some other guys on the defense. There has been a fair few missed tackles and missed assignments that have been pretty obvious, even watching just on TV, not even watching the All 11 tape, but seeing some guys be able to run wide open against them. The other, they've been dealing with injuries along the defensive line. Do you think we'll get some Isaiah Mullins back sometime soon? And do you think that the defensive line needs to, sort of step up a little bit in terms of what they're offering, or are they being asked to do too much in terms of, shut down the run and get after the passer?
You'd like more from the group, but I think going in, if you pointed to, where are the most question marks specifically on defense, it was that defensive line. There's not a guy that you can point to now without Keanu Benton there that you could say is a, true impact player. You saw spurts of James Thompson. I thought he, played well against Washington State, but you don't have that playmaker like you did with Benton. And I don't know that someone from that group right now is going to emerge this year. Darian Varner was kind of the wild card. He didn't play week one. He played very sparingly week two. So I guess going back, if there is a guy that maybe emerges mid-season, it's a guy like Varner. But I think with that group in total, there's just not a lot of elite difference makers there. And, Mullins is a 6-year guy. Even if you do get him back, I don't expect him back this week. We haven't really got word on, what's exactly going on with him. But, he's solid, but he doesn't come in and change the outlook of the entire position. So I think that's probably something that Wisconsin's just going to have to deal with this year and maybe get a little bit more creative there. But that group, I don't like saying it, but the group just kind of is what it is right now. And I don't know that it's going to take huge jumps throughout the course of the year.
On the other side of the ball, on the other line of the ball, we saw some real issues crop up against Washington State with the protection for Mordecai. Even in the first game, it was a little bit up and down. Do you think that this group struggles have anything to do, or there's some to do with they're being asked to do something basically completely different, or are there still talent deficiencies that need to be addressed?
Yeah, I think you can point to it's a different look for the offensive line. It's different spacing, it's different responsibilities. But in terms of talent, we've been talking about how talented this group has been now for 3 different position coaches, from Joe Rudolph to Bob Bostad and now to Jack Bicknell Jr. And I mean, really, this group for at least 3 or 4 years now has not performed up to what, one, the standard is typically at Wisconsin, and 2, where a lot of people would project them out of high school to play. A lot of 4-star kids on that offensive line, and a guy like Jack Nelson, and it's been talked about a lot this week. Obviously, he didn't play well against Washington State, but that's the guy going into the season where you said, hey, he's our Wisconsin's best offensive tackle prospect in terms of the next level. And I think there's certainly some question marks there. I don't think one game ruins your outlook or your career, but they put a lot of stuff on tape that made Nelson look very vulnerable out there. So that's a group that has underperformed to start this year, and that's been a consistent theme now for a handful of seasons.
Yeah, they've underperformed as a group going back, I'd say, but yeah, like you said, like probably about 2020. Like the 2021 group, I thought was probably the nadir of the recent offensive lines, but they haven't had, I think, a really strong group since maybe that Oregon Rose Bowl year.
It seems like a long time ago.
It is. It's 2019, and I think that is really saying something for the program, because that didn't just show up in pass protection, but also showed up in the run game. They weren't able to get any holes for Braylon or for Ches really going in this game. You saw that they averaged 3.1 yards per carry. Talking with some guys who I was watching the game with, though, they said, one of the things that they noticed, from the first 2 games is Braylon looks much more comfortable when they go into the pistol. And we've seen a couple times that they've gone to the pistol with Braylon, and Braylon can really get downhill. And that's made a big difference. Do you think that we will see any, offensive adaptations and wrinkles, like maybe bringing in the pistol more, moving forward to get the backs in the running game a little bit more comfortable? Obviously, it was really strong in the opener against Buffalo. They ran for over 300 yards as a team, but we saw some real struggles against Washington State.
Yeah, I would expect them to try to get their best offensive player going. I would hope so, and I think they want to incorporate these backs in the passing game. And I just don't know if that's the strength of Braylon Allen, right? I mean, look, it's nice to have like a robust skill set and a lot of stuff he brings to the table, but like you talked about, if he's able to get rolling in the pistol, I think that you need to get him rolling in the pistol and what he's comfortable with. And yeah, it was just just such a difference from week 1 to week 2. And I think in week 2 you're already in a hole, so maybe you're passing a little bit more than you wanted to because you're chasing some points early. But at the end of the day, he's arguably your most talented player on that offensive side of the ball, and I think you have to find ways to get him going early and getting comfortable and kind of in a rhythm there. Ches Malusi is kind of the same way. The week 1 blueprint is a lot better than the week 2 blueprint was, specifically in the run game. And like you talked about, Matt, a lot of that falls on the offensive line too.
Mhm.
It is a group effort there, and
Yeah.
obviously something I would imagine they're stressing as they begin preparation or continue preparation this week for Georgia Southern.
Yeah, and for Washington State, that defensive line obviously was their strength as a unit. You look at Stone, you look at Jackson, you look at some of the guys that they're putting out there are really athletic guys, but you would think that there would be, some counters to that, in that game and moving forward. I thought the receiver group though looked better against Washington State. And one of the things that I'm expecting to see against Georgia Southern this weekend is the ball going to Bryson Green even more. He definitely had more of a presence in game 2. What were your thoughts there on the receiver core as a unit?
Yeah, it's a talented group, and you saw Bryson and you saw the attempts to CJ Williams that went incomplete. But again, I think that group is good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of are proven at different levels. Some have been proven in Wisconsin uniforms, others in a Cincinnati or Oklahoma State
Yeah.
uniform. So yeah, I think you have 5 guys there that they feel very good about. Chimere Dike seems to be the consistent piece of that, and I think as the season goes on, you're going to see more of Green and more of C.J. Williams, and Will Pauling as well. A guy that they have been very high on since they brought him on campus. So again, and that second half, it was a different style of play, and Tanner Mordecai seemed to get in a rhythm there, and how they balance that out with the run game. Will be interesting to kind of follow there. There are guys there, I think, that are legit playmakers, and I would say that if there are groups that will emerge as the year goes on, very much so, I think will be the wide receivers.
Yeah, one of the things though, John, you and I did some predictions before the season. I don't think either of us would have predicted that Braylon Allen would lead the team in receptions through 2 weeks. But we were right on Pauling though. He's the leading receiver in terms of yards, at least, and has the most catches amongst all other players not named Braylon Allen, which is still kind of wild. So last thing we'll talk about here, moving forward, looking forward, I should say, is the specialists, because I think we've seen a tick up in special teams from last year to this year. That obviously has a lot to do with Nathaniel Vakos. Vakos or Vakos? I never know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Second way, I believe.
Vakos. Okay. So Nathaniel Vakos, thank you. I hope I got that right.
I actually think it's Vakos.
Vakos. Okay, Vakos. Vakos. I can do either way. It doesn't Vakos. I've said it enough times now, I should get it right. With Nathaniel Vakos and the special teams, they have looked, I'd say, they've looked a fair bit better. He's been perfect on field goals, and I think it's that's at least nice to see the improvement in special teams so far. Even Chimere Dike is a good punt returning. I think he looks better this year than he has in years past. Have you been hearing anything about sort of special teams, the improved play there, and just your thoughts on those units?
Yeah, when you go out and you get a scholarship kicker, I think that Luke Fickell saw a need there and they went out and addressed that. It didn't work out, 2 years ago, I guess, with Vito Calvaruso. They went out and got a scholarship kicker, and he was hurt, and that just didn't work out. But that need seems to have been addressed. And then, after spring camp, they had that 15th practice was kind of a lengthy special teams practice, and I think they just said, hey, we have to get a punter here. We just don't feel comfortable with the room that we have right now. And they got Atticus Bertrams, who's I think been solid, through 2 games, and he's young, and the future of those 2 positions now looks pretty strong. And when you allocate scholarships to those position groups, that's the expectation, is that you put those guys out there and you don't worry a whole lot about it. Chimere Dike in the return game, I don't love having your top receiver there, but he's been consistent, right? Like the word I used before, and a guy that has big play potential there. So if you feel like he has the best hands and the best decision making, and a guy that can break off chunk plays every now and then, maybe the risk is worth it having him back there.
Well, I know, talking with Bernie and some other former players, they all love having DK back there because with the ball going around to so many players now, it's another opportunity to get the ball in his hands in a situation where he can make a play. And in Bernie's, justifications, well, we always had Jim Leonard returning punts, and he was the best player on the team. So,
True.
What's the problem there? If he can do it, coming straight off a defensive series where he's winded already, anyone should be able to do it. I said, well, Jim's a little bit of a special guy, but still point taken there, because I do think it is, I think it will come in handy in one of these games down the road this fall. Okay, so this weekend, Georgia Southern. What are you expecting to see? What do you think is the final score? As my dogs get very excited for the game.
That Georgia Southern brings out the fire in animals and people. I think that maybe a little bit back and forth to begin with before Wisconsin kind of gets settled in. I think this is a game where they can a get right game, I guess you could say, in terms of getting right on offense and getting things kind of solidified on defense. So I do think Wisconsin wins comfortably here, but again, I think it's an offense that will be challenging to the Badgers, and it might take a few drives to kind of get figured out. So in terms of a final score, I know that's what everyone wants to hear, is a final score. So let's go 38-17. Wisconsin comes out on top at Camp Randall.
38-17. Yeah, that sounds about right to me, actually. I'm going to agree with that one as well. I really want to see the defense get pressure. Like, I want to see, I know they're still trying to get it out quick, but you still got to find a way to, to get more pressure on the quarterback, because, defensive backs can only defend for so long, right? And you need to make that quarterback want to get rid of the ball, or feel like he has to get rid of the ball earlier than he wants to. So that's definitely going to be the main thing I'm looking for if the Badgers can get pressure onto Davis Brin, who, as far as group of 5 quarterbacks go, is a pretty solid one. So
yeah,
he's seen a lot of football. He's a pretty good player. And, that they are going to try to, run the tempo and spread it around a little bit. So I'm excited to watch that. I'm excited to watch sort of how this team grows and continues to get better throughout the fall. And we will be here with all of you throughout the fall, into the winter, and into the spring, and more on Badger Blitz TV for all of the top information on the Wisconsin Badgers. So make sure you're over on BadgerBlitz.com and subscribe, get in on the message boards. And until next time, he's John McNamara, I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.